Hi everyone. It's a quick video on requesting digital resources from PPS IT for use in your CTE classroom. So in this video, we're going to cover kind of the nuts and bolts process of going through a software request or digital use request. And then after that, we'll kind of talk about when you need to request, why you need to request, and then we'll sort of wrap up and finish up. So the most important website in this whole process is this one right here. This is the landing page for all of the approvals. We'll look at it in a second. But this is definitely one to write down and bookmark if you do a lot of things with software in your classroom. So keep this handy, and you might want to go there and follow along in this video. So what's the basic process look like? Basic process when you want to use software in your classroom is to check to see if it's already been approved. If it hasn't been approved, make a request so that it gets on the approved list. And then, part of the process is waiting for that review to happen. And so planning ahead is pretty important in this process. Okay, so let's take a look at just the actual nuts and bolts of the website and what you would do if you want to request something. So following that link from before, which is up here in the bar if you are still needing it, we'll land up here on this digital resource use and purchase page. There's a lot of information here. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but we want to start at step number 1. Is the resource already approved? And there's this link right here that says PPS/Learn Platform. And this, when you click on it, it's going to launch you to a site over here, which is going to be a list of all of the currently approved software. So you can see, or actually both approved and not approved. It's actually anything that's been sort of requested is going to show up here. So if you see here, you'll see things with green and orange and red and all those. Those are just like the different kinds of approval we have. The quickest way to go through this is you just search for the thing you want to use. So let's say I want to use Adobe. Well, look, I popped up a few different Adobe things. Creative Cloud. Look, it says it's approved. That's great. Let's click on the details. So at this stage, if I have made it to here and I see that Adobe Creative Cloud is approved, then I'm going to make a request to have IT help install it on my computer, or you can move forward with a purchase if it's something that you need to purchase for your classroom that we don't have like a district license for. Those are really important. So like for instance, if I put in Pro Tools, you can see here that it says approved, but it's blue. And what does that mean? It means that we're not in a contract with them yet. So this means that you're allowed to use it, but we're waiting for some more information. So you could install it sort of on your own, but we're waiting for the contract about personal information being approved. So what happens if your thing doesn't show up? So I'm going to try a software called PyCharm. And you'll notice that it says there's no products in the Portland Public Schools library. You search to find products in the Learn Community Library. So PyCharm is like a well-known software, at least in computer science. And so it popped up from the Learn Community Library. So I could click on the details. I could see the details. It just tells me what the software is. But there's a little button. Oops, let's go back to PyCharm. If you see here, or I can click on request. So it's part of this system, but it's not part of Portland Public Schools. So I can click on request, and then I am going to get a little form to fill out. Okay, so I'm requesting it. The product name is PyCharm. It's from Portland Public Schools. And now I'm going to get a form to fill out. Name of your school or department. I'm going to say, I'm going to fill this out like I'm still at IDB Wells. So, or actually, I'm going to fill it out like I'm the TOSA. I'm going to say, CTE department. My role is, hey, I'm a licensed staff. Sounds great. Okay, principal or supervisor's name, and I go down and start filling out all this information, right? So I would fill out my supervisor's name, and then I talk about how I'm going to use this application. This is a really important step. And you really want to focus on giving detail about how this meets the requirements of your class. So for CTE, one of the first things that you might want to do with a lot of software is you might want to lead with industry standard software, and then the rationale about why students are going to need to use this. So for instance, for PyCharm, I could write something like, this is the most popular editor for certain programming languages. It's important for students to know how to do this as an employability skill. So you really want to give good, clear details, spend a little bit of time on this to answer the why. Why should the software be approved if it's not already approved? Okay, and I'll ask you if it's on Google Play, and then will students under the age of 13 be using this? No, because we teach high school. Is it free or purchased? So offers both in this case. A lot of software will be free for educational use. You can look that up when you're doing it. So this next one, the personal identifiable information, is kind of the most important one because that is that's what IT, one of the main things IT is checking for. So what do we want to do is, will data be entered or shared with the company inside this application itself? Sometimes it's like a hard no. Like, this doesn't even connect to the internet. It doesn't have any login information. It doesn't share anything. So you might be able to say no. A lot of times we'll be clicking unsure because I'm not sure. One other thing that you can do in this description section is that a lot of times there'll be a privacy statement from the software in question. So like, let's say you use it and they'll say, this is how we use your data. If you copy that and put it in here, the how we'll be using, that makes everything a little bit more smooth. So, okay, so once you filled all of that out, you hit submit, and then you're done. You're going to sit and you're going to wait to hear back from IT about the process, and it's all started. Sometimes your product will not be on this list at all. So in this case, like, let's say I wanted to install, oops, I spelled Fortnite wrong. Oh, wow. Fortnite Creative is on here, but let's say I was trying to install Fortnite Basic. I could hit request product. If I hit request product here, then I will get a totally blank request. And so then I'll fill out these things here, which will then add it as one of these things where you can then follow up on it. So you'll get one of these again. So if it's completely not in here, this is when you should let me know. Reach out to your TOSA, reach out to Direct to Thing. You're going to click on request product. You're going to put in the product name and you're going to put in the the URL, and you're going to hit the submit request. But you're going to want to send another email out just so we can kind of keep an eye on it to make sure it shows up. So that's pretty much the quick process of going through and actually getting the software request. Once it goes through the process, it will show up on this list and it'll have one of these color-coded things. Okay, so when to request. A lot of this is about knowing what you need. The current model for all of the cybersecurity concerns, student privacy concerns, is to really plan ahead about the software you're going to be using in your classroom. So we really want to make sure that we're thinking ahead and trying not to, get something installed for next week, last minute. Everybody's going to move as quickly as possible to try to accommodate short-term requests, but it's really good to maybe review the kind of software you want to use, once a month to make sure that if you have any requests, you get them in ahead of time. So why do we have to request? What are the main motivations behind it? And so the big one is privacy. Okay, so IT needs to vet all the digital resources to comply with student data privacy laws. That's really a big one. Similarly, that privacy is also sort of security. Certain apps could have malicious software associated them, or they could have security vulnerabilities or things that kind of compromise the like cybersecurity goals of the district. So we really want to make sure that everything goes through this process to keep our labs, more likely to be running and less susceptible to bigger issues. The other thing is if we get our software approved, we get the support of IT. So you saw there's different kinds of approval there. So like for instance, Adobe, it's approved, it has a contract, it's fully supported by the district. If there's an issue with Adobe, you can easily submit a ticket. Somebody will come and help you install it, configure it, whatever. And then another really big piece about this is consistency, is when apps show up on this list, then the software can easily be used by any of the people in your programs of study. So if, one digital media teacher gets a, some sort of art program, say After Effects, something like that, approved, then everybody can use it and doesn't have to go through this process. So it really encourages the programs of study to talk about, hey, what software do we want to use, and keep everybody from just using sort of one-off things. Okay, so some things to consider that might not be obvious in this process. So one of the things that we need to get approved right now are things that are third-party logins. So there's a lot of like web apps where you would like log in with your Google account, or applications where like you would download them and students might use a Google account to sign into them. There's been a change in how Google does that. It used to happen sort of behind the scenes where it was like, oh, you have a student account. We are going to vet the data and how it's collected, and Google did all that. Now Google doesn't do that. So there's a bunch of apps that you might have been using before that might suddenly show up as blocked because they haven't been whitelisted as being okay because of this change with Google. So that's where, resubmitting some of the apps that you might have used for years, and they might suddenly have stopped working. That's because there was a big change that happened in Google that happened in September of 2023. Some software require a contract with a district, and this can be slow. So, on the plan ahead thing, approval can take 2 to 6 weeks. Don't wait. Get it in early. Get it in, often, especially if you're going to use a lot of different kinds of software. So for instance, certain software has like very strict licensing, or they might have privacy statements that they need to modify to work with the district. So sometimes we need to set up contracts, and that's like a whole nother process that usually involves district people. So that just adds time. So be ready for that. And then, kind of the most important thing is, reach out. The CTE TOSAs are really happy to help with this process, and IT is really happy to work with you to do this process too. It's really just about having the right expectations and clearly communicating like why this is super important in your classroom. It all goes back to students and being student focused. And so when you request some software, be ready to say like, this is why we're going to use it. This is why we're going to use this instead of some other software that might seem similar on the surface. Be ready to answer those questions, but we're really happy to help you navigate these processes. And a lot of these approvals get reviewed by myself and the IT team when we get together and meet. So it's, the more you let me know, the more we can help you have this be a successful process. And so that's it. If you have any questions, reach out to me, since I kind of handle the IT side of things for CT. And I look forward to hearing you. Hope this was helpful. Cheers.